Ordinary Habits, Extraordinary Life is about mastering simple things in everyday life to expand your views, access more of your untapped potential, and evolve ordinary habits into an extraordinary life. Here is your host, Maria Bailey.
Welcome to Ordinary Habits, Extraordinary Life, where we dive into life's big questions with simple, real, and intimate stories from masters in their field, where we invite you to be curious, be inspired, and simplify the way. In a world where many of us want immediate results, our guest today took a different path. Penny Bernarth is a martial arts practitioner of 48 years, and in her own words, I wasn't very good at it. It's taken me a long time to find Aikido. Penny holds positions of respect and responsibility in two very different worlds. As Sensei Penny, she is a master teacher and one of 3 women in the U.S. to be ranked 7th degree black belt in Aikido. And for the past 40 years has been the organizer and taught at the largest annual Aikido seminar held in the United States. As Miss Penny, she is the Director of Education at South Florida PBS and the developer of Kid Vision Pre-K, providing preschool teachers with training and tools to teach developmental learning goals so children will be prepared for kindergarten based on national criteria. I've always been inspired and in awe of this woman that can hold her high-ranking leadership with such femininity and kindness in a male-oriented world, such as it is the martial arts world. Penny teaches about energy and movement. Now, how these two worlds meet, intertwine, and strengthen her is what I hope we can all learn from her today. Welcome, Penny.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. I'm honored.
Yeah, so glad that you agreed. Penny, when I was planning to, welcome you and really reading so much about your path and what you have accomplished, my question was, what do you believe you've mastered?
I don't think I've mastered anything. I think that I try really hard and work hard at what I do. Continue to learn and to grow. And I always feel that, for instance, a good example is Aikido. There are a lot of wonderful Aikido practitioners, and there are people stronger than me and not as strong as me, and so many different types. And I always feel when I'm feeling very, I always remember that, there might be a lot of Aikidoists, but there's only one me, and it's okay for me to be me and to do the best that I can and show that I can and I'm worthy of what I know because I've worked very hard to learn it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you haven't mastered anything, and yet you're 7th degree.
I know.
Belt Aikido. So what did you get so good at that that the U.S. Aikido Federation gives you this award, this ranking award?
Longevity and the ability to continue with Aikido for such a long time, and just being blessed with the position that I was just put in. I started Aikido, and within the first few weeks I met Mr. Yamada Sensei, and he opened so many doors for me by trusting me. Mm-hmm. The United States Aikido Federation Winter Camp is the meeting of all the technical committee and the United States Aikido Federation board. And in the beginning, since it was all Japanese Shihan that met. And so I had a chance to intermingle, take care of them, learn what their likes and dislikes are. And that part off the mat was as great a learning experience as real experience of being able to be on the mat, for them to know who I am and to take a special interest in my Aikido. So off the mat, I would be taking care of them. And then I felt like on the mat, they were taking care of me. And, to take care of those kind of gentlemen, you have to have a certain way about you, a certain personality that they respect, that isn't, I don't want to say whorish. I just tried always to be very polite and respectful and to tend to their needs and to give them. I remember one time we went to a restaurant afterwards. I had all the Shihan with me, and that meant at that moment they were all Japanese. And
so Shihan means that they're Japanese or that they're high rank, they're masters.
The master teacher, and I have that rank now, which is beyond my dreams and expectations, but I hold it with honor and with responsibility. Mm-hmm. And but all these, I might have had 7 of these Japanese men with me, and I went to pay the bill, and the server wouldn't take it from me. He said, "No, we're talking many years ago, probably 30 years ago, and he wouldn't accept the money from me." And I said, "Honestly, all these men made the money that I'm giving you, but it's my job to pay you." And he wouldn't accept it. So I had to ask Yamada Sensei aside to please pay the bill, which was ridiculous. But so Sensei paid the bill, and then Sensei gave him a big tip, I'm sure. And I think that's what he was looking for. I really think he thought that men would tip him better than I would. But he was probably right.
And so this story, how does this story reflect on the point that you were making on?
I think what I'm trying to say in a very roundabout way, it's one example of me not being a bitch, so to speak, but letting that happen and letting Yamada Sensei take the lead on it, and then him being respectful back to me. And it's just that I always found that being a woman was to my advantage, not to my disadvantage. And that using my resources and my femininity was really a gift and not something that I wanted to fight, even though I lived in a martial art world where the men were such men, just they train with you and they either beat you up or they train so lightly with you that it's not respectful training in any way. And if you show any kindness at all on the mat, they take it as, they treat you like you don't know what you're doing, and they start to correct you, and all you're doing is being nice, and it's just such a hard balance I always wanted when people watched me, or what I want to feel inside is both feminine and powerful, and not to give up either one of those characteristics. I did not want to give up my femininity in order to be powerful. And this is in a time when women were either women laughing and not really participating, or there were women that were trying to be men. And so I really wanted to capture my own self and my own personality, and respect that I'm a female, and respect that I can be powerful in the art of Aikido at the same time.
Right. I mean, and again, I think a lot of what you, in our previous conversation, and what I think you bring is that paradox, right? And you were talking about who you are as a teacher in a world that is mainly dominated by women, and then being a sensei in a world dominated by men, and you're able to work these two, and being feminine and being powerful. So if I can go back to, I'm still actually curious about the question of what you've mastered, and I believe that you haven't, but what has changed? So what do you know now, for example, like from that dinner, that dinner with the 7-8 Shihan there, to who you are now? What do you know now that you didn't know then?
I know now that other women expect different things from me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the position that I am at the moment, I have a lot of women that want me to overthrow the likes of the Japanese nature and culture and to be a strong, powerful woman and step in and make changes. And now that I'm 7th Dan, the 3 7th Dan women were just promoted this year. So it's not like we've had a long time to be here and make those changes. And so, but it's very hard line. You know, I always, as a woman, I never expected to be a master teacher or to hold the same position as men. Since from the 40-something years I've been training, that expectation has really turned along with the women's movement. But still with the women's movement, I want to respect who I am and be okay with it. I want my sensei to know that I am completely loyal to him. And because it comes from a Japanese culture and feels a certain way about women, it's okay with me. I'm going to follow him anyway. I respect him. I respect the martial art that Aikido is. And too, when women complain in Aikido about, you know, they're not being called through Kemi, they're not being asked to teach classes, I have to say, because I put on the Aikido, the winter camp, I've always taught a class. And so I've had that respect and responsibility and at summer camp too. And because my husband is a 7th degree black belt in Shihan and has been for a long time, he travels around the world, and I politely have been invited to travel around the world with him, which I've taken full advantage of. And because of that opening, I've been able to establish myself as myself. Because I'll give you a small example. We went to Cuba and we got there, and so they had 2 mats, and they were really interested in how to teach children's class. And so they wanted one of us to teach how to teach adults how to teach children, and they wanted the other one to be an advanced black belt class for advanced level to go to the next level. So Peter, Aikido is my work is with children, so I never teach the children's class at Aikido. I do Aikido for me. I do Aikido to be an adult, and it's not my job. It's what I love. And so I've never taught the kids class. And so when they separated us, Peter went to where the kids were and I went to the advanced class, and they thought we were completely confused because of their language. And so they're explaining, and Peter and I are like, okay, we know. And so then it took them so long. And then finally he just said, we know what's happening. You know, and Peter's like, I'll teach the kids. He's a very good children's teacher. So he went and taught the kids, and I taught the advanced class. And once we both got going, they were all like, oh, you know, they could see that that's really what he's very good at that. And he's good at the other thing too. But I'm good at teaching advanced class too, because I like a lot of movement, and I prefer advanced classes to where I will teach right foot, left foot, take tank on, arimi, tank on, whatever that is, you know. I know, and it has to be done, but I prefer a class that's dynamic and moves, and advanced people or even beginners, if you could just teach them basic movements that they can get out of the way and move and feel that lightness in the movement and the power of the movement is more where I like to focus than on, you know, teaching kids Aikido.
Right.
So
what I'm receiving, and it's a shame that our listeners can't see you, but I can see you going more intense in your eyes and more still in your body, even as you're talking about movement and power, you know, that your presence becomes more, you became like more substantive here, right?
mm-hmm.
So this presence, this love for movement and what you bring now in the tatami, right? In the advanced classes. Can you trace it back? Was this something that you always cultivated that was part of you, or something that you had to develop through the years, the 48 years of Aikido?
I think one of the reasons that it helped me develop it is that, I was never a trained athlete. I was never good at memorizing dance routines, or I'm still not good at katas, because you have to remember my body is more reactive to response. So if someone's coming at me, I can respond. And because I've learned the basics of Aikido, so over and over and over, it's repetition. We only learn, it's all mat time. I remember Kanai Sensei one time saying, he was yelling at everybody because we had some bad black belt testing, and he was like, the only thing that matters is mat time. Nothing else matters. Your body has to be able to do it. You can't think it. You got to do it. And so I really believe that. I still train 3 and 4 times a week just because I feel like if I don't, I might lose it. I want to be able to fall down and get up even during the pandemic where we're training. Right. But I think it's just a matter of the thing that I feel good about is moving and responding and lead and avoid and keep the circle going, where I'm not as good at, I might not put my correct foot forward. My body position might not be completely correct, which drives Yamada Sensei crazy. He follows me around any mat I'm at, no matter what, to make sure that I'm doing it correctly. And I found people wanting to train with me only because they wanted his attention. Oh. They know if they're training with me, he's going to come over and have a conversation with me about what I'm doing wrong. But it's because he wants me to do it right. And if I can, I do, as hard as I can. But I really feel Aikido is open and individualized, and it's really, once you learn the basics, it's the power and energy of the movement that makes it happen. It's not right foot, left foot. You have to learn that in the beginning, but then you have to have the opportunity to open up and just experience it.
How does Aikido then translate to how you move in your day? Like when you wake up, and how does that movement and ease that you talk about translate, I don't know, when you're making coffee or you're planning your day?
I think, one thing that really drove me to Aikido in the beginning, besides I wanted to learn a martial art, I wanted to be able to protect myself, is I needed structure in my life. I really did at that time. My life was a structural mess. And so when you go in the dojo, there's rules. You bow when you walk in the door. You take off your shoes. You respect people. You sit in a certain order. When you get off the mat, there's a certain thing that you do, and I really enjoyed that repetitive, knowing I was doing the right thing. Even if I wasn't doing the right thing on the mat, I knew how to go. I knew the structure. So now I do the same thing. I structure myself. I get up in the morning. I do my morning things. At 10 o'clock I have toast, and, at 11 o'clock I go to bed. But I structure my day very, very accordingly, so that I have an internal body clock, I think, that works along the same ways. Like, you can have structure, but be free within that structure, So I know that I'm going to get up, I'm going to turn on the computer, and then I'm going to go do that. But whatever I see on the computer, I'm going to do whatever I need to respond to.
Right.
So I think it's structure.
And so, Aikido is about, I don't know if but it's about using that energy where it would be an attack and then redirecting it. Am I defining at least one aspect of Aikido? Kind of finding balance, right? It's like I is balance, ki, the chi, and do is the path of it, right? Or the journey.
Right.
So it's kind of like the path of harmony, we could say.
And I think when they talk about Aikido in everyday life, in a work situation or a personal situation, there's always conflict. And so, and Aikido's taught me a lot of things, and some of them are, being brave, believing in myself despite all others, and just not being fearful to try new things and not be afraid to fall down because you are going to get up, and I think on the other side, educating young children has taught me not to be afraid to play, that everyone likes to play and everyone likes to smile, and movement is play. So if you keep that movement, it's funny, my goal when I'm training, when I'm in a class doing Aikido, and I take Aikido more than I teach Aikido, is always to help the person that I'm training with feel the best they can feel. So to get on their level and to train as hard as I can on their level so that they feel powerful and they feel like they can do it. And when I'm teaching young children or teaching teachers how to teach young children, it's the same thing. I want them to meet children where they're at and scaffold and play with them so that the kids feel good about what they're learning and feel that they can master it, but it takes someone getting down on their level and saying, you're okay. We're okay. We're at this level and you're at this level. You don't have to worry that you just walked in the door and I'm a 7th degree black belt. We can meet at your level and I can train you at your level so that you feel good about yourself and you want to take the next step forward because you feel like you can do it. And I think on both of my careers, that's the goal, is to motivate people to feel good about themselves.
I got giddy a little bit because I had an image of little Penny, and I don't know if you have siblings or not, but it sort of like imagines like you're sort of like the older sister, and you're like, yeah, I mean, you are. The
older sister. I have there's 3 of us. I have 2 younger sisters.
Aww.
We don't always get along.
Do you have a story where, I guess what I'm trying to get at, that since we talk about habits, there are habits that we learn or habits that we develop through time and then they become more crystallized, right? We are older, but, there are habits, it's just like who we are. And so in some ways they become habits, but it's just because we refine these impulses or things that we naturally do. So I guess what I want to get at is like, do you have a story of being, the sister or young Penny where this is true, where the value of trying to help another person feel the best that they can is your impulse?
I think because I was the oldest, I was always my mom's helper and helped her, and she was always telling me I was a good helper. And for a while I lived with my grandmother when I was very young, and she is an amazing woman. She was a seamstress, a dressmaker, and actually had a little shop on Lincoln Road and then moved into her own home and had 6 ladies that worked in the house, and I got to pay them. And then I was the dressmaker's granddaughter and went with her to like the Fontainebleau, and that's, in the late 50s.
And by the way, just to give context, this is in Miami Beach.
Yes, Miami Beach. And she made dresses. My grandmother was gifted at embroidery and beading. And so that's when all the gowns were so beautifully beaded and embroidered. And the ladies would sew and she would put on all the finishing touches. And then we'd go to these grand houses and I'd help her carry the dresses, and they were so heavy. And, but at that time I didn't realize that, she was the one that was making the money in the house. To me, she was, I was so proud to be her granddaughter. They all loved her. I got cookies everywhere I went. But, I don't know where I went with this, but she was a big influence on me. And she, when someone tells you that they love you more than you'll ever know, and that there's nothing you could ever do that would stop them from loving you. It's powerful. You just feel like you can do anything.
Thank you. So is it your grandma made you feel the best?
My grandma was, yeah. And then she would leave little money around, like, for me to find because I was helping her, but she didn't want to pay me. So I would find shiny pennies. And now whenever I see a shiny penny on the ground or anything, I always feel like she's speaking to me.
Oh, yeah. It's true.
It's so funny. But my mother too, you know, she was always my mom is the kindest person in the world. She thanks you for everything that you do, and she appreciates anything anyone does. I was very lucky to have a mom and a grandma like her. It was good. But then when I walked into Aikido, you know, I needed some male influence, and there you go. I got that. And then when I had 2 children, we were running the dojo, Peter and I. I met Peter from Yamada Sensei. I had taken Aikido for about 8 years and had known Sensei all that time, and he loved to come to Florida. And then he wanted to start the United States Aikido Federation. He wanted to have a meeting with Yamada Sensei, Kanai Sensei, Chiba Sensei, and Tohei Sensei. And so he needed a place to have the meeting, and he asked if I ran this seminar and this meeting, he would bring everybody. You know, we worked on it together.
Yeah.
And it was a big success. It was only going to be once, and 47 years later now. 40 years, I don't know, a long time later, we're still doing it. And it still gives me an opportunity to work with him one-on-one and have private conversations with him and dinners with him and keep our own special relationship happening, which is very important to me. And I don't know, when I think about like I have my Aikido life, which is very different than my work life. And when I was thinking about it, I was thinking the third part of the triangle, though, is my family.
Right.
Because from Yamada Sensei, I met Peter and we opened the dojo, which encouraged me to always stay in Aikido and never leave it because it was our business. You know, me going off to teach was only because I had to have a job. And then I loved it, and I had never had the opportunity to go to college, and realized that if I worked full time, I could go back to school. And I always felt like I could do it. I just didn't have the opportunity. So I went back to school when my son started kindergarten and finished my master's when he finished high school. Same month.
Oh my God.
So, I know, we went to school together, and all of my work and early childhood was my daughter. When I go back and look at my master's program and teaching young children, she was my
inspiration,
my everything. If I ran it by her, I started new programs at the university. First, I would say, what do you like to do, Madison? And she really led me down this path because she was bright and beautiful and cooperative and was interested in learning. And so I don't think she thought she was my mentor, but she really was. I should tell her that because it's true. And, I have a son and a daughter. My son is older. He's 4 years older than her. And so, but she really became by the time she was with me was when my master's programs and that started to develop. And so I started creating my own programs and really used her to help me do that. More played with her to help me do that.
When I hear you, there are certain keywords that you've shared. Like we started off with how you respect Yamada Sensei, right? And you want him to know that you respect him and you would follow him, right? And like respect is a high value for you. And throughout this conversation, we arrived at your grandma, right? Of how she gave you a certain kind of love where you felt, has you feeling the best. There's a way like I'm connecting these two, like that dinner with all the Shihan. And tell me if I'm connecting too many dots and it doesn't go, but I just saw kind of like this, it could be like this wonderful metaphor of you were leaving pennies for them. That's what you were there to do, to make them feel great and in service and with respect and being polite. And if we talk about habits, you go, and in this conversation, that's what I feel of you. Like there's a respect, service, and love.
Exactly. I never thought of it, but really is true. It's true. Just knowing that kind of behavior, rather than fighting the line, flowing with the line, it's better to pick up pennies for good behavior. Or not good behavior, respectful behavior, helpful behavior. And put them out there yourself too. You know?
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I'm very pleased with where I am. I really, in my entire life, there was a time in my life when we had 2 children and I had no job and no training for anything. And, we had our dojo, but really 35 years ago, even now, it's hard to run a dojo and make any money doing it, much less have a dojo running and raise 2 busy, active kids who want things like every other kid does, But, and to be a 7th degree black belt and a Shihan master teacher is beyond my dreams. It's beyond my dreams. I feel very responsible. I think one reason that I stayed in Aikido so long, not only because we ran the dojo, and that's again going back to my family and my mom. My mom is absolutely beautiful, but she always would say to me, if it wasn't for you, I could have been something. But because I had children, I had to be a mom. And so she would sneak around on my dad to have part-time jobs so that she could buy us things, because he didn't give her enough money to get us the things that we wanted. But she wanted to buy us dresses and she wanted to buy us little hats at Easter time and all that. And he didn't give her that. So she would always be working and he had no idea, but she could go home and clean the house and cook dinner, make sure it was ready. And, there was another lady in our neighborhood that thought she was having an affair. And she said, I know I'm coming home flushed, but it's because I'm working. I'm trying to get home as soon as I can, And, she worked as hard as she could to make it all happen for everyone, but she always felt like she could have been somebody, like she could have gone to college. She could have, if she wasn't a mom, she could have been somebody. And so I always felt like I'm going to be a mommy, but I'm not going to let go of myself. And I've started Aikido. I love Aikido. It makes me feel good about myself. And so I would leave them with babysitters, with my family, with anyone. I would go to Aikido seminars because I didn't want to, there's women that bring their children with them. And I always felt like they're not going to get anything out of coming except be annoyed with me. And I really want to train and I want to practice and I need to work on me. And so if they can survive a babysitter for a weekend, they'll be better off for it because they'll learn survival skills. And, that's how the only place I really brought them was to summer camp. And my son didn't come after the first couple of years. He didn't want anything to do with it. So he'd go to baseball camp or stay with my mom. But my daughter always went with us to summer camp. Since I think from birth to 21, she came to summer camp with us. She made her own friends there and, she had a great time. She didn't know she had nothing to do. There was never any TV or anything at camp, but somehow she always kept herself busy and happy and created her own little world with the other kids that were kind of Aikido orphans there, But I felt like it was really important for me to have my own time and to work on myself and that would make me a better person for them. And I didn't take away from them. My daughter was a baton twirler on a national level, won national awards, and my son was a baseball player on the traveling team. And I don't know. There was at one point in my life when I was working full time. The dojo was happening. Amada Sensei was down a lot and he was taking us to France. And we were like in the heyday of our Aikido years as far as excitement and growth and learning and meeting new people. And I was going to school. And then my son was playing baseball and Madison was twirling. And I remember waking up and just thinking, okay, where are we going today? Is it the baseball field, the gym, the dojo? Am I going to school tonight? I don't know. I have to, then I was very organized and had to have one of those big schedules.
Going back to the structure that you said, like you needed to
I needed to structure myself. So, there were days I ended up in the wrong place, but my kids understood. They're like, oh, Mom, I don't think we're supposed to be at baseball. Nobody's here.
Right. But I think, what I'm also being here with you, what I'm also learning is that aside from the structure and that, attitude, it seems, of bettering yourself, but also offering, right? Like offering that love. And, again, I hope our listeners can feel it, but you, all your stories have such laughter, right? Like you seem to have a lightness and a humor, towards how it happened and how, I can imagine it being challenging, the kids' school, your school, your own growth, just the daily, like that, like the food and whatever.
Right. And they wanted dinner every day.
You what?
And they wanted dinner every day.
And they wanted dinner every day. So in terms of habit, like, did you have something that just kept you? Well, I guess the way I would ask is like, what held you through that, or what was the constancy through all that you think that helped you become the woman, the 7th degree, black belt that you are today?
I think it was Aikido. I think Aikido really gave me the inner power and inner peace to be okay with myself and fail, but know that tomorrow I might not feel so bad about it, and like I said, you fall down and you get up, and it's overcoming fear, when you're a woman. And the men that take martial arts are generally bigger than you. And so they want to be forceful and overpower somebody, and you are the easiest person on the mat to overpower. And so it's just about, I think it's better for me, because then you have to learn to maneuver around that power, and still it's all about movement. If I stand still and I'm trying to fight them, it's not going to work. I have to blend and become one with them and find where I always am looking. Where is the open space? Where is the open space? Where is there no conflict? Where can I put my body and lead them that there's no conflict there, that we can, I can move into a place of power, so then I can take control.
Do you have a memory that you can share with us where, sort of like that the Aikido fairy godmother came to you in a herring moment and you, okay, I'm going to align with you, just so we can put it into context?
The most challenging seminar I ever taught. And, it was the Year of the Woman, and I was invited to go to Puerto Rico, and the United States Aikido Federation asked me to go because I was the closest one. The closest female to Puerto Rico was me.
Yeah.
And so I went, and Peter went with me, and, it was not what I expected at all. There were hundreds of men there, and it was very hot, and they wanted to train from like 8 a.m. till 5 p.m, all the way through. They had a TV camera there. They had a radio announcer there, and they were all speaking Spanish, which I know little of because my grandmother is Cuban. And so I know the dialect and we're in Puerto Rico. So it sounds different, but the same. And then, they invited men of all martial arts. So there were judo players and karate players and Aikido people and all kinds of people there. And they were all men. There was not one other woman on the mat.
Wow.
And so, and usually in Aikido, if you have a hakama on, you were a black belt. And since I didn't know any of those people, I of course called someone who had been introduced to me, and he had a hakama on. And he, I called him up and he held me. I put out my arm and he held my arm so tightly that I thought I was going to turn blue. And he was determined not to fall down in front of all these other men for me throwing him. So Kanai Sensei had told me one time, if you can't move them, just fall to the ground. Just drop. And so that's what I did. I just dropped, and he was holding on so hard that he had to drop with you. Right. And so he dropped with me, and then it was like, okay, you started that, so let's keep it going. And then I thought to myself, well, I just won't teach too many techniques, so that I'm not with the camera on and the radio person right there and having to perform. Instead, what I'll do is I'll just keep things going and keep the mat busy, and that way there'll be some relief. But what I found is the judo players started like wanting to fight with the karate players. Like they were just like the little boys on the playground, They all wanted to fight with each other. And I kept reflecting on the playground thinking, these guys are all 200-pound martial artists and they mean business and they do not want to fall down for each other. They're all this macho game is going on and it's hot and heavy. And so I'm just trying to maneuver myself in and around. And then I realized I have to be the main event so that I don't give them the opportunity to break off into fights. And we're going to do this all weekend from like 8 to 5. It was so challenging and so talk about always looking for that opening. The minute I could find the opening, I was in the middle of it and on the other side and
go back to that opening space of no conflict, that opportunity
where you can lead someone to find a space where there's that empty space. It's just secretly there. And I think it all is a matter of lead and avoid and find it and then move from there and not try to control it, but just be open to where it is,
Can you just, for us to relate, like for some of us that may have never been in a tatami or done martial arts, because maybe in the martial arts, when you say the open space of no conflict, maybe we have something to relate it to. But say for somebody that hasn't done martial arts, how can they recognize that open space?
I think if you're having an argument at work with someone and you're face to face, you're opposite each other at a table or something, and you're in disagreement, they're in disagreement with you, and you're fighting for something you believe in and you want to happen, which has happened to me before. Instead of completely going into battle, to do, as Aikido people would talk about, to tank on, which means to move your body so that your eyes are facing the same way that their eyes are for a moment and see what are they talking about? What is so important to them? What is that spot that's so important to them that I don't want to negotiate with it, and try to turn around and just, even if I look full on ready for battle, find that just for a second, that spot that maybe we can agree on something and take it to another level so we can discuss it further and move that way. So I would think that would be a good example of conflict and then dissolving the conflict or maybe not dissolving it, but ending it so that, you're either being thrown down or they're being
Well,
thrown
at
down.
least what I feel like you're guiding me and guiding us is at least where to look for it. So, what does that space of no conflict looks like? Well, I'm imagining that it will look differently depending on the person and the topic that you're arguing about. But it seems what you're asking is if you're physically facing each other, at least kind of move your body, and emotionally, or at least in perspectives, shift your perspective to see if you can see from their perspective. And somewhere in there, in where you can agree, you will find maybe that space that you're talking about of no conflict.
Right.
Is that what you're
Yes,
pointing
exactly.
to? Yeah.
It's not going to work all the time. I always feel like it's like life is sometimes like Aikido, where you can either enter and just move forward and throw someone down. You can tank on and see where they're coming from. You can Tenshin, which means you step back out of the way and let them go by. Or you can get off the mat yourself. And just,
I love it. Can you say them again? I think those are very, very relevant. Yeah.
So one is to enter and just have your agenda and put your hand under their chin and lift it up and knock them down and enter through and not.
So you have something to say and that's your point,
right.
Period.
And that's my point. And then another way is what we talked about is to tank on and just take a look at the same direction they're looking for a minute. Try to put yourself in their place and see why is this happening? And the next one is called Tenshin, which means to step back. And if I step back, the person's going to move in front of me because they're coming at me. So if I step back and let them move past me so that we're avoiding the situation for the moment,
Right.
And the next one would be just not dealing with it. Just get off the mat and come back later.
Beautiful. I when you hear it, it's so simple. And of course we all know it, but, hearing it so succinctly, it's like, all right. Like in those moments of conflict, we have options, right? We have options. I mean, I tend to I thrive in conflict. I tend to tell my husband, it's just like I think maybe the Latino background is just like when you get in it, it's just exhilarating for me. And he's conflict avoided, but I do see the benefit of just pausing and maybe not take this one, kind of choosing your battles, and there is a grace to that. So in hearing you again, I'm reminded, right, in those moments, the key is to have options, right? And not be so, at least, not be so stuck in your own way or one way.
There's a time and place. There are times when you have to just move forward because you know that you're right.
Yeah. I like to call it to be responsible. To be responsible, you need to be able to respond in the moment. And sometimes you respond and it's just like, stop it, or you, protect a child, protect somebody, or this has to stop and it's final,
I agree with that.
Penny, where's your growing edge right now? What are you being grown into at the moment?
So much. And Aikido, especially since the pandemic has hit, and, our dojo at this time last year, we were closed and all of our travel stopped. And Peter, we run one of the largest dojos in the United States, and to go we had more than 100 kids and more than 100 adults, and go from 100 to none.
Right.
It was a good thing I still had a job.
Right.
We could both have our cars. And then, now rebuilding that world and rebuilding it really with a new world, because people are passing and people are growing and women's rights are coming into play and world culture is coming into play. So the Japanese culture, it's not disappearing in any way, but in the world of martial art, it's evolving.
Right.
I always feel like, I don't want to backpedal or anything, but this is one thing that I do feel about Aikido. I feel that it is this big, beautiful tapestry that everybody has a thread in. If you've been in it a short time or a long time, or you've been brilliant in it, or you've been in and out of it, I feel like everyone has a thread in that tapestry. And that now the tapestry is still building and still growing and still gaining color and gaining strength and vitality. And as Aikido grows worldwide and becomes more of a worldwide art, that tapestry will have many layers and many colors, but it's all connected, and I think it's all connected through the basic movements of Aikido.
So when you wake up in the morning these days, what holds you to the center? What holds you to your true course? I don't know.
Well, Aikido is it's what I do. I think my education world right now is really taken top priority as far as not top priority, but it's a priority too because it's gone virtual. And 10 years ago, this was my doctorate dissertation, was to help preschool teachers, to aid preschool teachers, to be an advocate for them so that they could take an online virtual class and use that directly in the classroom, because I was teaching teachers, and so many times you teach teachers, they go back to the classroom and there's ants on the playground, there's a sick child, there's a mad parent. There's so many things going on, they can't change their old ways. So to give them a tool, like a virtual field trip they could show in their classroom so that all the kids are like watching a little movie, and then you have the movie to talk about, and then you can bounce off ideas and do activities based on it and have lots of language and consideration. And that teachers then can move forward too, because now they've started the process of learning. They've started the scaffolding process. And so I really believed in it, but nobody else did. But one guy at PBS believed in it, and I pitched him the idea, and he said, and I was just like, nobody. And he said, you're brilliant. I think we can get funding for that. And we did. And then 10 years later, the pandemic happens and everyone's looking for online content to teach early childhood.
Oh my God, right.
And I have, 120 field trips and everything in Spanish and English and all kinds of things going on. So I'm full of content, and it's just took for both things, both for Aikido and for my education. None of it was overnight. Like you said in the very beginning, I was not good at Aikido. I wasn't a natural athlete. My mother never believed in women participating in sports. And so I never grew up with that kind of mentality. Aikido I saw it in a park, and it just took me away because I wanted to learn how to take care of myself. When I saw it, it looked like dancing, and it just took my heart and never let go. I always feel good. Sometimes it's a struggle to get there, but once I'm there and I'm on the mat and I'm breathing hard, it's like, yeah, this is where I need to be.
Penny, I love, and actually it's funny that it's Penny because we've been talking about shiny pennies.
Yes.
But your 120 videos, and it just reminds me of your grandmother and the shiny pennies and how your desire to help others and, feel better, feel the best that they can. And also connecting it to, what you said about your mom and how she says that she could have been somebody without you, and you didn't let that happen to you, or at least not be resentful to your children of what you could do. It was on you, it seems. You took it upon yourself of what you could do or not. And here you are. And there was a moment in this conversation where you said, well, I just wanted to be a better person. If that meant going to school, if that meant doing Aikido, if that meant, working, with children. And even now, as you are stretching yourself and both and how you're reinventing or innovating yourself with the Aikido and innovating and reinventing yourself with how education used to be with the pandemic. I really, it's been an honor and a pleasure to be in this conversation with, again, how I started with your femininity, there's a very palpable nurturing, that you bring and your leadership for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I do think the power comes from empowering others. Just like you're doing. You're empowering others to tell their story. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you for bringing the power, exactly, and how femininity, you said you didn't want to lose your femininity and power. And so to end on that, yeah, power comes from empowering others.
It does.
Yes.
And as females, I think we have a special place. I think we have to I don't want to end it on a bad note. I just want to say that we should be proud that we're women and be okay with being a woman and be okay with being who we are and what we have to offer the world from a female point of view.
Well, and so to that, I want to add, there's some female, like you said, there are females that are strong and physically athletic and like you said, like maybe they'll favor the step in and punch in the chin as their go-to. And if that is who you are as a woman, be that and kind of be a better person as you are. And that if that's not who you are, I think what I've learned from you, I think somewhere in an interview that I read, you said you wanted to take care of yourself without confrontation. And so exactly. Also, if that's who you are as a woman and there's that kind of femininity, there's also room for your power in that. That's what I learned from you.
Thank you. One time I used to, when my daughter and I watched a lot of, I'm just going to say this, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
My daughter and I were watching movies and I hated movie. I don't want to use the word hate, but I really disliked movies where women were like these badass kicking, and for them to be equally as powerful as men, they had to beat them up. And I always would my daughter would say, "Why, Mom, that's what you do. Why does that bother you when you go to the dojo every night and I watch you throw men around? What is your problem with that?" And I said, "But women are so much smarter than that. We can so much get more of what we want by using our own way. We don't have to become that evil, strong, take a knife and kill them kind of person to survive." Mm-hmm. You don't have to do that. You can bring out that femininity in you and use that power to do the things that you want to do. It's just as powerful.
Well, Penny, and if it's anything like you can do both. You can kick butt, although you haven't, knifed anybody, you haven't killed anybody, at least that we know of. And yet, there's a gentleness and a kindness to you. So if at best you can do both if that interests you.
Yes, I agree. You can do both.
Penny, if people want to reach out to you, what is the best way to contact you?
Probably through my regular email, which is pennybernarth@hotmail.com.
Beautiful. And if they're interested, if it's a teacher that is listening to this or a parent, I saw some of the videos and they're funny, they're educational, they're interactive. So, you can also look for kidvisionprek.com, right? .org. .org. So that also, they can find you. And it is the Florida Aikikai. So also, if you're in Florida and you're interested in Aikido, you can also, find her through.
It's AikidoFloridaAikikai.com.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And to our listeners, until next time, be curious, be inspired, and simplify the way.